Sometimes God tells you to keep your mouth shut, not because you're weak, not because you don't have something to say, but because silence is a strategy. You see, when the children of Israel walked around the walls of Jericho, God gave them specific instructions. He said, march around the city, but don't say a word. For 6 days they marched quietly, and on the seventh day they shouted, but only after obedience had already opened the heavens. Some of us are shouting before we've marched. Some of us are speaking before we've submitted. And God is saying, this time, victory doesn't come through noise. It comes through silence. It's not that God doesn't want you to speak. It's that He doesn't want you to speak prematurely. There is a time to speak, and there is a time to stay silent. Ecclesiastes tells us that. But the flesh wants to defend itself. The flesh wants to clap back. The flesh wants to prove a point. The flesh wants to make sure everybody knows who you are, what you've been through, and how wrong they were to cross you. But when God is working, He often says, stand still, be quiet, watch me move. And I know it's hard. It's hard to hold your peace when they're lying on you. It's hard to stay quiet when the rumor mill is grinding your name to dust. But listen to me, it's not about them. This ain't even about them. This is about your preparation, your development, your character. Because if you can't be silent in front of foolishness, how will you stand in front of greatness? If you can't keep your mouth closed in the valley, what will you shout on the mountain? There are moments when God hides you in silence to protect what He's doing in you. He'll silence your mouth so He can strengthen your spirit. He'll keep you from speaking so that you don't destroy what He's building. Because sometimes, hear me, the enemy is not attacking your body, your finances, or your family. He's after your mouth. He wants you to curse what God has blessed. He wants you to speak death over your promise. He wants you to call it over when it's just getting started. But not this time. This time, you're going to learn how to walk and not talk. You're going to learn how to trust and not complain. You're going to learn how to be silent and still see victory. Because silence is not the absence of strength. It is the presence of discipline. And discipline brings dominion. The Lord told Moses to raise his staff and he say nothing. The waters parted. The Lord told Joshua to march and he say nothing. The walls fell. The Lord told Jesus to remain silent before Pilate. And the cross turned into a crown. So why do you think you need to speak now? Let God handle it. You don't have to tweet it. You don't have to post it. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to defend it. When God says, keep your mouth shut, it's because He's doing something you can't explain yet. And if you speak too soon, you'll give the enemy access to something he never should have heard. So walk, don't talk. Trust, don't trip. Because when it's time to shout, God will let you know. And when He does, the sound will shake foundations, break chains, and bring walls crashing down, but not until obedience has had its full work. Until then, keep your mouth shut. God said so. And while you're walking in silence, you've got to understand something deeper. God works in the stillness. He's not always in the noise. He's not always in the thunder. He's not always in the earthquake. Remember Elijah, the prophet who called fire from heaven, the man of power and miracles. When he was hiding in the cave, broke, tired, afraid, God did not speak in the whirlwind. He did not speak in the fire. He spoke in a still, small voice. That's where God chose to reveal himself, in the quiet. Some of us keep looking for God in the chaos, in the crowd, in the performance. But he's saying, come into the quiet. Come into the stillness. Stop trying to make noise and learn how to listen. Because the stillness doesn't mean nothing's happening. The stillness means God is setting things in motion that your eyes haven't caught up to yet. He's behind the curtain, working the stage of your destiny. You may not see it, but heaven is moving. You may not hear it, but angels are working. Just because it's quiet means he's not present. In fact, silence is often the clearest sign that something holy is taking place. Have you ever noticed that surgeons don't operate in chaos? They operate in silence. The room has to be still for healing to begin. God says, be still and know that I am God. That means in your stillness, there is revelation. In your stillness, there is understanding. But you can't get the knowing if you're always talking. You can't receive the instruction if you're always arguing with the process. Sometimes you need to sit down and hush your spirit so God can download what you need for the next level. See, the enemy loves noise. He thrives in distraction. He'll stir up confusion just to get you to speak prematurely. He wants you to break your silence too soon because your silence is pregnant with power. Don't about the promise because you couldn't handle the quiet. Sometimes the wilderness is quiet. Sometimes the waiting room is silent. But that doesn't mean you're abandoned. That means God is rearranging, realigning, and preparing the right moment. Jesus waited 30 years before he ever opened his mouth in ministry. 30 years of silence. 30 years of being overlooked, misunderstood, passed by. But heaven was not inactive. Heaven was preparing the Lamb. And when he finally stepped forward and opened his mouth, demons trembled, blind eyes opened, dead things came to life. Why? Because the silence had purpose. That's why God is telling you to keep your mouth shut. Because you don't even understand what he's forming in the quiet. You don't know what he's hiding in the stillness. If you speak too soon, you'll misinterpret the moment. If you move too fast, you'll step out of timing. So he silences your mouth, not to punish you, but to position you. He's teaching you that stillness is not stagnation. It's alignment. Let him work. Let him arrange. Let him deal with the hearts of the people connected to your destiny. Let him shift atmospheres without your commentary. Sometimes, silence is your participation. Sometimes, quiet is your obedience. You don't always have to fight. You don't always have to explain. You don't always have to respond. The stillness is sacred. The quiet is holy. So while you're walking in obedience, while you're holding your tongue, while you're resisting the urge to prove your point, just remember this: God is working. Even in the silence, especially in the silence, keep your mouth shut. God said so. And while God is working in the stillness, you've got to be careful. Because in moments of pressure, pain, and frustration, your mouth becomes the most dangerous weapon you carry. It's not what they said about you. It's not what they did to you. It's not even what the devil whispered in your ear. It's what you say when you're tired. What you speak when you're hurt. Because your words have weight. Your tongue has authority. And if you're not careful, you will speak against your own destiny. That's why God says, Keep your mouth shut. Sometimes you are one sentence away from delaying your promise. One word away from building a wall where God was preparing a door. See, the enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to convince you to talk yourself out of what God already said was yours. He doesn't need to steal your blessing. He just needs to provoke you to curse it with your own mouth. That's why God told Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, you're going to be silent until the promise comes to pass. Because Zechariah couldn't believe it. He started speaking in disbelief. He let fear and logic come out of his mouth. And God said, I love you too much to let you mess this up. So he shut his mouth until it was time for the miracle to manifest. Some of you are wondering why it feels like heaven went quiet. Maybe God is protecting your promise from your own tongue. Don't you know how powerful you are? You were made in the image of a speaking God. He said, let there be. And creation bowed in response. And that same creative power rests in your mouth. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, not just over others, but over yourself. So when you speak things like, maybe I'm not called, maybe I'm not enough, maybe this is all a waste, you're not just venting, you're prophesying, you're declaring, you're activating something in the spirit. And heaven can't partner with a confession rooted in fear. God won't bless what you keep cursing. That's why the enemy wants to frustrate you. So you'll start speaking from your emotions instead of your anointing. He wants to get you so tired, so discouraged, so bitter that you talk yourself out of the very thing God was about to release. But not this time. This time, you're going to keep your mouth shut until your faith catches up. You're going to resist the urge to speak from the storm. You're going to hold your tongue until your heart is back in alignment with heaven. Jesus said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So when you find yourself about to speak defeat, check your heart. When you want to lash out, tear down, or quit, pause. Ask yourself, is this how faith talks? Is this how victory speaks? Because sometimes you have to silence yourself in order to protect the promise. Not because the promise is weak, but because your words are powerful. You don't have to speak on everything. You don't have to voice every fear. You don't have to narrate every moment of pain. Sometimes your silence is your agreement with God. Sometimes closing your mouth is the only way to stay in alignment with the assignment. So guard your words like treasure. Watch your mouth like a soldier. And when the battle gets hot, when the pressure rises, when your emotions scream for release, remember this. Don't speak against what God is building. Don't let your frustration cancel your future. Don't put your mouth on the very thing heaven is preparing for you. Keep your mouth shut. God said so. And so we've walked in silence. We've trusted God in the stillness. We've held our tongue so we don't sabotage our own destiny. But here's the next thing you've got to understand. There is power in a controlled tongue. Not just power in speaking, but power in choosing not to speak. Power in restraint, power in obedience. The same tongue that can bless can also burn. The same mouth that can release peace can also release poison. That's why the word says, life and death are in the power of the tongue. The tongue is small, but it can set the whole course of your life on fire. It can speak destiny or destroy it. It can build up or tear down. It can agree with heaven or it can echo hell. That's why control is not weakness. It's authority. When you control your tongue, you're not being passive. You're walking in dominion. Dominion over your emotions. Dominion over your pride. Dominion over your mouth. And some of the strongest people I know aren't the ones who shouted back. They're the ones who stayed silent when they could clap back with fire. Sometimes it takes more strength to say nothing than to say something. Because the flesh wants to speak. The ego wants to respond. The old version of you wants to rise up. But God says, don't do it. Don't give your tongue away to the enemy. Don't put your mouth on something I'm still working on. Don't speak from your feelings when I've called you to speak by faith. There are moments when the greatest demonstration of your maturity is your silence. You can tell who's grown not by how loud they speak, but by how well they hold their tongue under pressure. Can you sit at the table with people who betrayed you and say nothing? Can you stand in the room with people who doubted you, laughed at you, rejected you, and not feel the need to justify yourself? Because when you know who you are in God, you don't have to prove it with words. You prove it with fruit. And fruit doesn't need a microphone. There are blessings tied to a controlled mouth. There are breakthroughs that only come when you refuse to speak against what God is doing. Some things are blocked not because the enemy is strong, but because we didn't guard our mouths. We opened up and let doubt speak. We vented when we should have been quiet. We let anger lead instead of the Holy Ghost. But God is calling us higher. He's saying, I need you to control that tongue because where I'm taking you, you can't afford to speak loosely. Even Jesus said, I only say what I hear my Father say. That's control. That's surrender. That's authority. He didn't let pressure force him into saying something outside of purpose. Even on the cross, in the agony of death, he used his breath to forgive, not to curse. He said, Father, forgive them. Not, Father, destroy them. That's the model. That's the power. So the next time you feel the words rising, the next time your emotions start to boil, the next time you want to set it off with your tongue, pause. Ask yourself, is this life or death? Is this obedience or impulse? Because your mouth carries the weight of legacy. Your words echo beyond the moment. What you speak shapes what you see. So yes, speak when God says speak. But if he hasn't released you, keep your mouth shut. Let silence be your sword. Let restraint be your worship. Let discipline be your declaration of faith. Because your power isn't just in what you say. It's in what you choose not to say. Keep your mouth shut. God said so. And as you learn to control your tongue, as you learn the discipline of silence, here comes the part that stings a little. Because sometimes, while you're walking in obedience, your enemies are talking. While you're keeping your mouth shut, they're running theirs. While you're trying to walk in peace, they're stirring up mess. And everything in you wants to defend yourself. Everything in you wants to correct the narrative. But God says, don't speak. Don't fight. Don't respond. Let them talk. You just walk. You've got to understand, when God puts a promise on your life, it will attract opposition. When his hand is on you, it will draw critics. That's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's usually the evidence that you're doing something right. The moment Jesus stepped into his calling, the Pharisees had something to say. The moment David was anointed, Saul got jealous. Favor always draws fire, but fire doesn't stop the promise. It just tests your posture. And here's the testing. Can you stay focused when the whispers get loud? Can you keep walking when they're mocking, lying, and scheming behind your back? Can you resist the urge to stoop to their level and prove your worth with your words? Because here's the truth. If you respond to every critic, you'll never make it to your calling. If you stop to address every lie, you'll delay your destiny. And that's why God is saying, let me handle it. Let me deal with them. You just walk. You don't need to clap back when heaven is clapping for you. You don't need to prove your worth when God has already declared it. When they throw dirt on your name, don't dig with them. Build with it. Let their lies be the bricks under your feet. Let their gossip become the wind behind your back. You don't fight back in the flesh when your assignment is in the spirit. And make no mistake, this is spiritual. There are people assigned by the enemy to pull you out of position. Their whole job is to provoke you into speaking prematurely, into defending something God hasn't finished yet. But God says, keep walking, keep trusting, keep quiet. Because if you stay in position, He will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. Not in their absence, not after they're gone. He's going to bless you right in front of the very ones who said you'd never make it. Let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them wait for your downfall. They're going to see a resurrection. They're going to see a breakthrough, but only if you don't break character. Only if you don't forfeit the high ground. See, your silence is not surrender. It's strategy. It's a sign that you trust God more than your emotions. It's a sign that you believe vengeance belongs to Him, not you. And it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. It means you know that if God called you to it, He'll protect you in it. He'll defend your name. He'll fight your battles. He'll silence the mouths of liars in due time. Your job is not to be louder. Your job is to be faithful. So while they talk, you walk. While they plot, you pray. While they tear you down, you keep building. Because the best answer to a lie is fruit. The best response to a hater is progress. And the loudest shout you'll ever give is the one you never had to speak. Because your life will do the talking. Keep your mouth shut. God said so. And now you've been walking in silence. You've trusted God through the stillness, guarded your mouth from sabotaging your promise, held your tongue under pressure, and stayed silent while your enemies talked. But here's what I need you to understand now. Your silence is not forever. It's for a season. There will be a moment when God says, now open your mouth, but not to prove your critics wrong, not to defend your ego, not to flex your knowledge. He will open your mouth so that His glory can be revealed through your obedience. The silence was preparation. The silence was a setup. Because when God finally gives you the release, what comes out of your mouth will carry a weight. It won't be noise. It won't be flesh. It won't be bitterness. It will be authority. It will be revelation. It will be deliverance. And the only reason your words will carry that kind of power is because you first learned how to keep your mouth shut. Look at Joshua and the walls of Jericho. They marched for 6 days in silence. Can you imagine that? Walking around the same wall, a day after day with no progress, no shift, no breakthrough, just obedience. But on the 7th day, when God said, now shout, they didn't hesitate. They didn't argue. They didn't need a pep talk. They had been all trained by the silence. And when they opened their mouths, the walls came down. That's what God is preparing in you. A shout with substance, a voice with victory, a sound that breaks barriers, shakes foundations, and makes room for glory. But he can't trust your voice until he can trust your silence. He can't trust you with public power if you haven't mastered private discipline. You've got to earn the right to speak by learning how not to. When God gives you the release, your words won't be petty. They'll be prophetic. Your mouth won't speak from emotion, it will speak from encounter. Because silence gives birth to clarity. When you've been still before God, when you've obeyed without explanation, when you've walked without needing applause, your voice becomes dangerous to the enemy. This is why the enemy fights your silence. He doesn't want you to get to the shout. He wants to keep you reacting, responding, defending. He wants to drain your power in meaningless arguments. But if you can make it through the season of silence, if you can keep walking when it looks like nothing's changing, if you can hold your tongue when everything in you wants to scream, when you finally speak, chains will break. Some of you have been hidden for a reason. God's been quiet about you on purpose. He didn't forget. He didn't overlook you. He's preserving your voice for the right moment. He's setting the stage so when you speak, it won't be background noise. It'll be breakthrough. And when that moment comes, don't hesitate. Don't shrink. Don't apologize. Speak what he gives you. Declare what he's birthed in you. Release what the silence has refined in you. Because when God opens your mouth, it's not for attention. It's for assignment. Your words will carry healing. Your voice will carry deliverance. Your testimony will unlock faith in others, but only because you learned to submit your mouth before you ever used it. So don't resent the silence. Don't rush the process. Let God finish what he's doing in you. And when the moment comes, when he says, now speak, open your mouth and let heaven flow. But until then, keep your mouth shut. God said so.